Hello. So it is Sunday, March 23rd, which would be day 3 of Aries Decan 1. I just got done experiencing the sunset here in Cleveland, Tennessee. And I was just part of a group meditation that was meant to lead us going on the journey back to the beginning of time, before time existed, back to the beginning of the beginning, before story existed, before anything existed. The Big Bang moment, the big breath moment. In the beginning was the word moment. But start from a place of return to a place of that being our own personal story, our own personal knowing and remembering of what the beginning was for us. It was really beautiful. The sun was still in the air, and then when I opened my eyes after the meditation, the sun had set. And it made me think a lot about, or really feel a lot about what I'm really trying to do with this walk this year. And I tried to sort of express it in the first little video that I did. And I'll continue to try to give the feeling of what it is I'm trying to reawaken in myself. And again, just a reminder, I'm not trying to teach any system or anything like that. There's part of this where I'm trying to memorize through my body systems that have gone before, using tarot cards and correspondences that have been delineated out. But the other equally important part of this would be to feel into it myself. Ask these first 10 days of Aries, what do they feel like to me? What was the beginning like for me? And something that made me think about just now, or feel into just now, was there's like an Alan Watts idea, which is an old Zen idea, I think. It's where he was getting it from. But it's like linear time doesn't exist, right? There's only the now, the great now. And when I was growing up, the big mind-blowing, zeitgeist-defining moment was the Matrix, right? So it was like the waking up into the Matrix. And then in the last 5 years, we got everything everywhere all at once. We got all of these multiverse ideas that have started been popping into the zeitgeist. And that's a step in a direction where I think we're going. But that sort of started to make me think that, yes, I'm sure on one level, on perhaps the greatest, most expanded level, the Alan Watts "there is only now" idea is true, and that linear time is false. That holds truth. However, when I try to think of everything everywhere all at once, the now moment, everything happening now, there's still movement in it. And I was just trying to think of like, what is that movement if it's not linear in some form, if it doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end, a gesture that moves from one thing to another? How could we conceive of that movement in a now moment? And I think that that's what the astrological wheel with the Decan laid out on top of it, the tarot cards laid out on top of it, these chains of correspondences, I think that that is what this is trying to get embodied into the human. And I actually think that that's sort of what the future human is maybe going to need to learn how to navigate. It's not that we're suddenly going to be unmoored by linear time. I think it's a more nuanced apprehension of time as fractal, which is really interesting. We had Mandelbrot, very modern. I think it was the 80s or the 90s when Mandelbrot finally put math to to show us what a fractal does in 2D. And we've all like watched those animations of fractals, right? Moving forward and backwards in time infinitely, and it just is, it's constant movement, and yet it's all the same thing happening on different levels, interpenetrating, right? And then, okay, so that's a two-dimensional shape. What is it in 3D? It's the Jerusalem artichoke, or not the Jerusalem artichoke, it's the what's the word I'm looking for? The cruciferous veggie. I can't think of what it's called. Anyway, you know the one. You know the fractal Romanesco. There we go. Romanesco. Fractal cauliflower. That's moving out into 3D. And the thing that where my brain really breaks is when I start to try to put that into 4D. But I think that the wheel and its interpenetrating energies is what can help us begin to embody what time feels like. Other people have used to great effect the notion that reality is holographic. I like that as well, because that's like a monadic thing, right? Everything is a monad that is reflecting all in it. That also works to a degree, but I really have been feeling fractal lately, feeling the fractal thing. And I think it's just because of the studying of the tarot, or I mean of the astrology wheel, and how this can be divided in infinite number of ways. So I kind of wanted to give some more nuance to that. And I talked a little bit about what the tarot cards lay over in the astrological wheel. So if we have at the very center, we have the aces, which are the roots. They're called the roots of the 4 elements. So you start with these 4 elements and you have roots, and they come to a center, which we can talk about another time. Is that a 5th element? Is that ether that some traditions hold? Doesn't matter. 4 elements, we have the 4 aces. Those are the 4 roots. And then we have, pulling out 1 layer, we have 36 decans. 36 decans make a circle. Within that, we're going to keep with the idea of the elements, but then we're also going to bring into the idea of cardinal, fixed, and mutable, the modes. Cardinal is the ingress, the entry of an energy. Fixed is that energy at its most concentrated form. Mutable is when that energy is giving way to what will be the next energy. So keep that in mind with these 36 decans. Layer outside of that is then we have the signs. So the signs are 12, and that makes 360 degrees. 12 divided 12 pieces of 360 degrees is 30 degrees for each of these. And now those each sign is either one of the 3 modes or one of the 4 and one of the 4 elements. So you have cardinal, fixed, mutable fire laid out around the wheel. You have cardinal, fixed, mutable earth, etc., for all of them. Where we start in the Western zodiac, it's Aries, which is beginning, so it's cardinal, and it's fire. We'll back up to the root now. Why is fire cardinal? Why is fire at the beginning? And that takes us to some of the Kabbalah idea. In the chain, again, this is a linear thing, but there's a chain of being, or a chain of energy that goes from an all place and then goes down into more and more densified forms of matter. The very most rarefied of that energy is fire in this system, in this Golden Dawn system at least. Next, you have water. You mix fire with water, you receive air, and then out of air comes earth. Okay? So when you start at the ace or the root of fire, it is the closest to the pure source of fire. And then when you start to move down that chain, 2, 3, 4 of fire is your cardinal energy of fire. 4, 5, 6, fixed energy of fire. 7, 8, or 8, 9, 10. What did I say? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is fixed. 8, 9, 10 is mutable of fire. Then you get all the way to mutable, the end, you get to the 10 of fire, and that's when we begin again with the 2 of water. Chain goes down that way. However, when you're going through a year, it doesn't do it in a linear way like that. It doesn't go just down penetrating like that. There's also 4 domains in Kabbalah. I do not remember their names right now, but there's like the archetypal, and it just goes further and further down into more and more density, and those are correspondent to the elements as well. Okay. So then the 2, the 3, and the 4 are different stations of energy, what those numbers purely represent in that realm, archetypal realm. I hope I'm making sense. Okay, back to the wheel of the signs. So if we start on March 21st, generally, of the year, March 21st, you begin in cardinal fire with Aries. The next sign we go to is Taurus, which is fixed earth. So the modes move cardinal, fixed, mutable, cardinal, fixed, mutable, but they change their elements. So if we're going through 4 domains and moving through a progression 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these domains, you get like this weaving motion, if you get me, right? So if we start from this most rarefied place of fire, 2, 3, 4 at the beginning, cardinal fire, and then we get to Taurus, and suddenly we are in fixed earth, which is the second to last energy, or the second to most dense energy. And then we go to Gemini, which is mutable air, which goes up 1 layer of density into the very last layer of that airy density. And then the next sign is going to be water, which is cardinal water, which is Cancer. Cardinal water takes us way back up the chain to the beginning of water. So you have this like spirally thing happening as you go throughout the year, moving through the signs, energetically, density, okay? Then, I told you about the 16 court cards, but I just kind of said there's 16, so they take up different amount of space. What I had forgotten, but what is a very kind of crucial, it seems to me, layer, the more that I'm contemplating this, is you have 12 of those court cards are going to be Knight, Queen, King, say. They're different, they're named different things for different systems. Knight, Queen, King will go with. Those, if you have 12, they can be 30 degrees, right? But the 30 degrees of those elements set outside of your signs are 10 degrees tilted to the left or the right if you want. So you have the energy of, and those are all, the court cards are all corresponding to elements as well. So you might have the Queen of Wands, which is fire. The Queen of Wands might be overlaying The last 10 is actually overlaying the last 10 degrees of Pisces and the first 2 decans, 20 degrees of Aries. So you have a fire element that is blending, helping you move from the very last, the omega point of the zodiac in mutable water into cardinal fire. And you have that layer that is slightly jilted sideways of 30 degrees on the outside. And then the very last one is, just like you have 4 aces that are corresponding to the 4 elements, you have 4 princesses. Those are on the very further outer layer, and in the namings, the Golden Dawn namings of those cards, you have the aces are called the roots. These are called the thrones. The princesses sit on the throne of these energies, and that is, again, there's an air princess, there's a fire princess, a wand princess, sword is air, pentacle is earth, cup is water, and those 4 princesses sit on the outside. So that's plenty of fractality to kind of like feel into as you move through a year. It immediately started to unmoor what you have in this very first sign. It's the 2 of Wands. It is called in the Golden Dawn the Lord of Dominion. And it's the image in the Rider Waite is an emperor holding a globe. He's got his staff stuck into the ground, and one is leaning against something else, and it's dominion. All this, I've conquered all this. It's Alexander the Great. It's the most masculine you can be. However, when we take these other elements, it's really started to make me realize how much of a blending is necessary to really interpret that starting, the beginning of the beginning energy. There is so much blending that happens there. I'll try to shoot another video that talks mostly just about this, of what I've been kind of like seeing into about the moving from Pisces to Aries, because we're also in a really wild month that moved from Pisces into Aries, and there's a bunch of planets that are all piled up that are moving from Pisces to Aries, Aries to Pisces. There's 8-year cycles, there's 19.5-year cycles, there's cycles that we do not know when the last time they happened, where Saturn and Neptune are going to come together right at 0 degrees Aries, right where we started this Decan walk next February. Like, we don't know when that happened last. We know when Saturn and Neptune came together last, but we don't know when that particular conjunction happened at 0 degrees Aries. There are ideas, but nobody actually has calculated that, as far as I know. So there's a lot of this blending energy, this rocking back and forth. It's almost like practicing the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end. How do these energies play together to create whatever it is that our world is going to be next? I think that the way that humans are going to start to learn to experience the world is in this fractal way. A lot of weird time stuff happening for people. A lot of revisitations from people deep in the past, or dreams and things like this. Okay, the last element I want to talk about here is about rulership and about exaltation, because it's kind of the last big factor that we work with. Maybe I'll talk about 2 things. I'm at 20 minutes already. I'm doing okay. All right, rulership, exaltation. So the 22 cards of the major arcana, as I described earlier, is this kind of archetypal journey. I didn't really describe what those cards relate to. 12 of those cards, which we'll discuss them as we go through the year, are related to the 12 signs of the zodiac. Okay, so that gives us 12. And then back in the day, we only tracked 7 planets because those were the 7 visible planets to the naked eye. We called these wandering stars. We called the ones that didn't move fixed stars. Fixed stars had a whole different set of magic related to them. But over many, many thousands of years of observation, we see that some of these stars move. And we also got really wise to the fact that some of them move, or they all move at different rates. So, there we go. So we have 12 astrological signs in the 22 major arcana. We have 7 planets. We have Moon. We have Mercury. We have Venus. We have Saturn. We have Jupiter. Mars. I'm missing one. But in this traditional system, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, not part of the thing. Okay. Then you have 3 of the 4 elements also get their own major arcana card. And then, in astrology, not even associated to tarot, every sign has a planet that rules it. Every sign has a planet that is exalted. This is not super useful language these days. The way that I like to think of this is if a planet rules a sign, that means the planet is most at home expressing its energy in that sign. If a planet is exalted in a sign, then that means that its highest expression can be realized through that sign, generally. Back to the Decans. The Decans have correspondent planets to them as well, 36 planets. And we go, with those 7 planets, we go around and around and around multiple times. They don't ever repeat except for at the last decan of Pisces, which is 10 of Cups, first decan of Aries, which is 2 of Wands. Those are both ruled by or resonant with Mars. That's interesting to me for many reasons as we start to learn about or feel into what Mars energy is. Again, I don't want to take anything for granted. I want to maybe reference what others say Mars energy is, but I also want to ask Mars what they're all about themselves as we go through this. Okay. The way that those decans get assigned the planets are based on, it's called the Chaldean system or the Chaldean system, and this is they're ordered by their apparent speed to the naked eye. So they go Saturn, Jupiter. Sun was the one that I was missing of the 7. There we go. Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Okay. And they all have different apparent speeds, and they go down that way, and they just repeat and repeat and repeat until we get back to this point, and it doubles up with 2 Mars energy. Okay. So that's interesting. Then, when you take that apart and you look at every single decan, then you can say that there are 2 major arcana cards that will correspond to each decan. So when we look at these images, you can see that 2 Aries is presided over by 2 major arcana cards. The first one being the Emperor, which is the major arcana card for Aries, and then the Tower, which is the major arcana card for Mars. Aries is ruled by Mars. What planet is exalted in Mars? The Sun. This kind of makes sense. Anyway, okay, Mars, the Tower, the Emperor is Aries. Those are the 2 cards that preside over the Two of Wands. Okay. And I mentioned but a minute ago that the court card that is over top that layer that goes to the last 10 degrees of Pisces and the first 20 degrees of Aries, the first 2 decans of Aries, is going to be the Queen of Fire, the Queen of Wands. Very, very interesting. The Queen energy is higher. Higher. Doesn't make sense to me. I'm not going to use higher. But the Queen energy is presiding over all of this as well. So now we got to figure out, what is it to have a double dose of Mars? Mars lined up in the second decan of Aries. What is all that energy about? Okay. And then as we have more fun with this and we get more comfortable with all of these layers of the fractal, then we get to bring in other things which are really fun, like dwads, which is when you put the 12 signs in a singular sign. So you divide 30 degrees into 12 segments, which comes out to about 2.5 days. That's crazy. Then you have another layer, which is to take the I Ching hexagrams, which are 6 lines, and you spread those all across the wheel of the zodiac. And you correspond all of those to different energies, and then you can go line by line, and then you're basically walking across one single hexagram over the course of 6-ish days. So that's another crazy layer that we can add. And then the I Ching was played with Richard Rudd for his gene keys. So you can look at gene keys, and there are people that are tracking gene keys. So there's just like energy layer on top of energy on top of layer on top of energy. And then there's old astral magic had planetary hours. So you can know at every single day of the week, at every single of the 12 hours of the daytime and the 12 hours, or the 12 divisions, because it's not equal hours throughout the year, 12 night divisions of the day, which planet rules that hour. And then there's a day and a night angel that you can layer in. So there's just like endless layers of energy that you just bring in as you feel more comfortable with them, and not learn what they mean, but begin to ask, what does this layer bring to the equation? What do I get? What can you teach me? Not what do I get? What can you teach me? Show me how you want to be perceived. Always, always this. How would you like to be perceived? How can I bring you into my body to let more light in, to hold more layers, gently hold, to bring more layers of the fractal into my body? Okay, that's what this is about. We're only 3 days in, and I've got a bunch of pictures, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to use all the pictures that I have for Decan Aries 1, the first decan of Aries, the first decan of our zodiac decan walk, the Two of Wands. All right, we're almost at a half an hour. I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to go to bed.